privilege to be married to Steve Banning, the love of my life. We were teenage sweethearts. In fact, we met right here at Braeswood when we were 16 years old. Now, when Steve and I were dating, he had told me he was going to be a dentist. A dentist. So I was prepared for that. But when I went off to college, my freshman year of college, at Southwestern Assemblies of God University, I was in the prayer chapel one night praying. And God very clearly told me that we were going to be going into ministry. And I was very surprised because I had no idea of that. Well, right after that, I wrote Steve a very detailed letter telling him exactly what God had shared with me. But what really blew my mind was that same weekend that God shared that with me, God shared the same thing with Steve. And he wrote a letter to me, and they crossed paths in the mail. So it was an amazing, amazing time.
Well, I first met Pastor Steve Banning in 1978, the summer of 1978. And I came to Braeswood as the minister of youth, and he was working with me there in the junior high, senior high, and college department. And he loved those young people. He and I hit it off really quick, almost like a brother to me. We had a lot of fun. We talked about a lot of things. I knew him as a man of prayer. I knew him as a man who cared about God and about reaching other people. A big heart, not just a local heart, but a worldwide type heart, cared for people. And I can't think of just a better minister than Pastor Steve Banning. He has such a love for people and loves to reach out.
People often ask me how I see my role as Pastor Steve's wife and what area of ministry that I'm involved in. But I do feel like my number one priority is to be Steve's partner, to be his sounding board, to be his safe place. That when he comes home, I can be there to encourage him, to pray with him, that I can be a sounding board for him. And I count it such a privilege for that. I love the people of this church with all my heart and cannot imagine being anywhere else. And it's truly a privilege for Steve and I to be the mama and the daddy of this body.
I was born into Braeswood, and I've known Pastor Steve almost all my life. And just coming to know him, one thing I can say about him, he's very humble and he's very gentle. He's not, the type of person to push and push. And I think that's what I love about him most. And his sermons are always so fresh and I can always relate to them. And I just appreciate him so much for everything he's done, like in Braeswood, and just seeing how much this church has grown since I was born into this church. And I just love what he's doing with every section of the church, every part of the church, the youth. He's making sure this church is being builded on something strong so he can leave a legacy like his father did. And he's very funny. He's very, very funny. I love when he's always relating his sermons sometimes to food and how he loves chocolate cake, and I'm always just laughing. He's very funny.
My encounter with Pastor Steve was actually through his father. Back in '85 when we joined the church, Pastor Earl Banning was the lead pastor, and I recall when he came time to step down as senior pastor, he handed the baton over to his son, Pastor Steve, and of course, there's always the apprehension of what that would turn out to be. And in retrospect, it's been wonderful. There's been no change in terms of ministry. In fact, the anointing is just as strong. He is full of wisdom. The insights I get, particularly in some of these deacon meetings, that people don't get to hear. The sharings have just been a real blessing to me as well.
Steve has had the privilege of ministry being passed down, not only just from his father, but from his grandmother. His grandmother has wrote an autobiography about her experiences in ministry back in the early 1900s, and it's so powerful. And that passion, that love was passed on to Steve's father, and Steve's father passed that on to Steve, and we pray that we are passing that on to our son and our grandchildren as well.
Just the kind of person he is, and how warm and inviting and very encouraging he is. So yeah, when I think about Pastor Steve, I think about warm. When I think about ministry and the opportunity that I've had to work with him for going now nearly 17 years, I have to say that it's been a privilege being associated with the Banning family. First Pastor Earl, and then now Pastor Steve.
Pastor Steve's ministry has had a great effect on me. As a matter of fact, positive effects. And I don't have enough time to mention all of them, but a couple of things spring to mind. The fact that the matter of respect. I've never felt like referring to him or addressing him as Steve. He's Pastor Steve, and he carries that respectability. And even though I'm just a little bit older than he is, I always looked up to him, and he's a respectable person. And I don't measure him by his father, I measure him by himself. He's a respectable guy. But he has also shown me personal respect, much respect. In fact, he has allowed me to minister to his family.
And I've known Pastor Steve for about 11 years. And one word I would use to describe Pastor Steve is anointed. When I first came here and I began to hear his messages, I would sit in the audience and I would be wowed by the words that were coming out of his mouth. I felt the anointing, the presence of God when he would speak, and I would almost be in tears because the words were so profound and they were touching. I've learned a lot since I've been here at Braeswood Church. Of course, I learned about our maximum impact environment and about just being a blessing to other people and how to serve. I've really been blessed and touched and moved by this ministry in so many ways, and it's taught me so many things, and I've grown so much in this ministry.
For me, just two things that stand out in his ministry. Number one is the emphasis on salvation, making altar call almost every Sunday, if not every Sunday. That's really huge. I think sometimes we forget about. It's all about salvation. The other thing that has to do with it is emphasis on being a blessing to others. So wherever we finish the service, always remind us that we're blessed so that we can be a blessing to others. And lastly, the ministry in terms of the missions is really awesome. Considering that there's so many people out there that still need to know about Christ. So his emphasis on mission and salvation is awesome.
What I like about Pastor Steve is he has a great sense of humor, and he encourages me to keep going in the right direction and to persevere even when I'm feeling discouraged. I'm always encouraged by him when I come here on Sundays and listen to his sermons.
And the one word that I can think of that would describe Pastor Steve would be patient, a very patient person. In fact, in just a couple of weeks, it'll mark 35 years that I met him. I gave my heart to Christ one Tuesday, and then my father drugged me to church on Wednesday and introduced me to Pastor Steve and said, can you do something with him, my wayward son? And from there, Pastor Steve and I formed a very good and long-lasting friendship. He mentored me in a lot of ways. In fact, the minister that I am today, he helped to shape that, gave me lots of opportunities back in the youth group, and then when he was at Memorial and even ultimately even at Braeswood, a lot of opportunities to share, and I really appreciate that friendship and the mentorship.
Describe him in one word, it would be considerate. When I met him, I was a freshman in high school, and he took the time to speak to me and my younger brother and just to show his care for his family as well as our church family. I grew up with Pastor Earl, his father, and I came to really appreciate him as our shepherd and minister, and over the years I've come to feel the same way about Pastor Steve. I can honestly say that I feel that he's like family. Him and his wife, Donna, are like family to us, and I'm just appreciative of how much they care for not just the church body as a whole, but as the individuals, each of the members, from the eldest to the very young, and I'm appreciative and blessed to be part of this.
In one word, I would describe him as a man of vision, visionary.
Would like to encourage Pastor Steve to continue doing the work of the Lord, and we're praying for you.
He's a very simple person, and I know he likes us to buy him a motorcycle. One day you go and get that motorcycle that you wanted. But I just want to encourage you, keep up doing what you're doing, and at the end of the day, the reason we're here on earth is for evangelism. And I just support you to continue to support mission, and I thank you for all the good work you're doing.
Well, Steve, congratulations, and I'm proud of you. And you know, one of the fondest memories I have of you is that your strength. I remember when your parents died, how well you took that.
He should continue to move forward. Moving forward, going forward, there is never going to be easy. But as he moves forward, trusting the Lord, God will see him through in everything that he does.
Would never have thought in 42 years that God would have done all these amazing things in our lives, and we're constantly reflecting about how grateful we are and how blessed we are. But for Steve, as much as he loves it, as much as I love it, honey, I just want you just to continue doing the passion of your heart. And I know that you love God with all your heart, and you love God's people with all your heart. And I just pray that that light never goes dim. Now, my mother told me one time that you married me and it was not by accident, that I am there to keep you humble and to keep you grounded. And I do that, as well as your son and your grandson. We like to pull pranks on you and jokes on you, and you take them really well. But we're never going to let you have a big head or think you're something you're not. That's what we do for you. But we love you so much, and we're so grateful for these 20 years that we have been back at Braeswood.